Here are the Michigan sanctions. All right. So I have, on Twitter, I'm seeing all the Michigan fans say, this is the hammer that dropped. And, I see all the Ohio State fans saying, don't wait, or don't worry, it's coming more and more. At the end of the day, nobody really knows what's coming and what's not coming. I tend to believe that there will be, some stricter stuff coming because this was not the Connor Stallions, sanctions that happened here. These were the sanctions that came from the recruiting violations that happened during COVID. Essentially what happened with those is that, Jim Harbaugh, bought a cheeseburger. I'm sure everybody's heard that, has bought the cheeseburger for a couple of recruits. That's what kind of started it. But the real issue is that when they went to James Franklin, when they went to Jim Harbaugh, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to get James Franklin in trouble here. Sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Forgiven.
When they went to Jim Harbaugh and was asking him about it, he acted like he didn't know anything about it, which, they took as lying, take it however you want. I'm not going to take a side here. I'm just trying to present you with the information. And at the end of the day, they being the NCAA, did not like how they responded with that. And they didn't like some of the other stuff that was going on. This wasn't like Arizona State bad, where Arizona State literally had, players on campus taking visits in the middle of COVID, which that was a big no-no. But they did have, coaches watching players work out on Zoom and some stuff like that, which, like, really at the end of the day, it's really not that big of a deal, but it is an NCAA rule. So I guess you have to follow it. One thing I can agree with Michigan fans on is that the NCAA is stupid and I don't like them. And I wish that they would just
T-shirts.
Yeah,
NCAA stinks T-shirts. That's
T-shirts. We'll start throwing them at the games and at tailgates. You get one. But essentially the penalties here outlined by Ross Dellinger on Twitter, a 3-year probation for Michigan that can vary, based on the circumstances sometimes. So when you hear probation, it's not always the same thing for everybody. A fine and recruiting restrictions. Those recruiting restrictions weren't exactly outlined, but the fine, I forget how much it was, but it wasn't something super substantial. And then a 1-year show cause for the coaches who were involved in the situation. All of those coaches have since left Michigan, so there's nobody on Michigan's coaching staff that will be affected by those show cause, which to me makes no sense why you would give show causes to a bunch of coaches who are no longer around because, they already have jobs for next year. It's not like they were going to get hired for this year. So, I mean, we'll get everybody else's thoughts here, but I'll just share my thoughts first, which is what are you doing? The NCAA just made themselves look even more worthless than they already did. Put in a probation, which the probation idea is that you can't do anything when you're on probation, so that way you get in more trouble. But guess what? You put the probation on after they had the whole cheating scandal stuff. So, does the probation, does it even affect the cheating scandal? I don't know. To me, it's you installed the probation after what happened before. So I feel like it can't really go with it, but whatever, that's just me. And then, a fine, guess what? If you take away scholarships, guess what? Walk-ons can get paid NIL and they can get their scholarship paid for. So that doesn't do anything. I guess maybe they can't go as often or something like that. That would be a little hurt, but I shared my thoughts on the show cause there, but Zach, we'll let you go first on this, man. Your thoughts on the sanctions or penalties, whatever you want to call them. Let's start with this. Were these sanctions fair, or did they get off easy?
it's oh gosh. I
feel you.
I'll say this. I think if this were in 2019, which it's clearly not 2019, this would have been I think a reasonable punishment. And I'll say this too. I do think this could mean that the hammer might be coming. Cause I know the coaches aren't there anymore, but to say, hey, 5 coaches have show cause and potential violations and penalties for Harbaugh are coming later, which is at the end of this, for this incident, not Signgate. it makes me think that the NCAA is not going to run and hide like they have in the past. That being said, the NCAA stinks. They again, how meaningless is this? Like, it's just, well, we don't even have the names of the, I mean, I'm sure they're out there, but like, according to the report, like in the actual NCAA notice, it doesn't name the coaches. It doesn't actually name the recruiting restrictions. Maybe they're out there somewhere else, but like, this is on the official NCAA website. And it doesn't have any of the stuff actually clarified. What the heck? And so I'm not going to say it's fair or not fair for Michigan. I'm just going to say the NCAA is incompetent, because that's what this is.
Yeah, no, I completely agree on that. It's just, and that's the other thing too. It's like, if this is a coach that is currently on Michigan's coaching staff, which it's clear it's not, because they talked about the foreign ones, like we have no idea who it is, because nobody's actually getting named and nothing's actually happening to any of them. So,
so what's the actual punishment?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's a nothing. Instead of a cheeseburger, it's a nothing burger.
Now that belongs on a t-shirt.
Exactly. We'll go to you first, Vince. We've gone first to Andrew all night, so let's go to you first, Vince. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I kind of agree with Coach Franklin on this. He's said in his pressers, what's the point of having the rule if you're not going to enforce it? And, I think this makes the NCAA look foolish, kind of like you guys said, and it's not really meaningful. Now, there are a lot of rules within the NCAA, but I was recruited as an athlete myself, and like my coach would say, hey, I can't talk to you between these dates, like talk to you in a month or so. So like these coaches at that level, they know the rules, and the fact that they're not really doing anything, it's really alarming, especially with the Connor Stallion stuff with stealing plays. Like that impacts the plays for this year. And they still got to go to the Big Ten championship. They still got to go to the college football playoff and win the national championship. Similar to the New England Patriots, Spygate, they didn't get their Super Bowl taken away. They lost like a draft pick or something. And that's just a little slap on the wrist. So if the NCAA does actually care, they need to really start, really laying down the law. Otherwise, they just look foolish. And like, really, if you're a college football organization, like, why not go outside the rules if you're not going to be punished? Like, that's kind of the message that the NCAA is sending.
Yeah. I mean, like, you look at like places like Tennessee and West Virginia and stuff like that, or was it West Virginia? Whatever the other school is that joined them in their suing of the NCAA, like those schools had violations against them for transfer portal stuff, and look what they did. They took the NCAA to court, and the NCAA is so incompetent that they can't even win in court. So it's like, it's almost like, why doesn't everybody just cheat now? Because the NCAA, their penalties mean nothing, and other than like you get some bad rep on Twitter for a little bit, but I mean, you could do that from like grocery shopping at the wrong place. So like at the end of the day, it really isn't that big of a deal. Andrew, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I'm probably going to echo a lot of what all of you guys already said, but I think I agree mostly with Zack in that, it was just a thing to do a thing. It was a nothing burger. Like, it felt like a token thing that the NCAA can just say, hey, we did something. And that just seems to be the case with a lot of these, these kind of slap on the wrist types of penalties, if you even want to call them that, that have happened over the last handful of years. So I think, though, this still keeps the door open for something more severe to come with the Connor Stallion stuff. Like, maybe this is like the first dish of what's going to be coming with that. And that's really like when the hammer's going to drop. I would say that my confidence level that something like that is going to happen is pretty low, because as we've all reiterated so many times here, the NCAA has proven time and time again just how incompetent they are and how poorly ran stuff like this is. But I still think that the door is open there, that maybe this was like, they're like, okay, we'll cede, or we'll give you that this was something insignificant, but the significant thing is going to result in something much, much bigger. So I think it's just another case of like wait and see, because they move really slowly, and when they finally deliver, it's usually pretty underwhelming.
Yeah, and also at that time, like Jim Harbaugh's already out the door and coaching in the NFL before anything happens to him.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. That's kind of the thing is like, what can you really do other than like contacting the NFL and asking like, hey, can you please do something to Jim Harbaugh because he left before we could actually do anything to him? Like, there's nothing you really can do. And I mean, obviously there's gonna be Michigan fans that watch this and it's like, oh, take that, Buckeye. You've been saying this all offseason long. I do think that, the opportunity for the Connor Stallions, punishment is still there. So I don't think Michigan is completely out of the waters yet. But at the end of the day, like I look at this and it doesn't give me any confidence in the NCAA to do the right thing or to punish them the right way. I mean, in my mind, this doesn't impact this season at all for Michigan. And like, I can't see something that's going to majorly impact Michigan going forward coming from the NCAA as much as I think it should. And I think that there should be something that impacts them greater and possibly something to do with, punishments of, vacated wins and stuff like that. Like at the end of the day, like that still doesn't matter. I said this on the podcast months ago, like the NCAA can vacate this national championship, but guess what? That doesn't take away what those players felt. That doesn't take away the fun that the fans had. That doesn't take away the trips and the memories and all that stuff. Like all that's going to do is it's going to, have one troll on Twitter say, yeah, but it was taken away. It's like, okay, Michigan fans are going to say, I still felt everything. So what does it do?
Well, it's, I still remember USC winning the national championship in 2004. Technically, it didn't happen.
Exactly.
But, like, I still remember Reggie Bush winning the Heisman in 2005, although he actually doesn't have his trophy, which is dumb. But it's annoying just how, like, the NCAA was tasked to oversee this sport. And they have done such a terrible job. And I think, JR, you made a really good point that I want to highlight. You mentioned that walk-ons could just get NIL money. And I think that point alone highlights how antiquated the NCAA has become because their sanctions are predicated on a past system and they have not changed. And that is maddening to me that they have not considered how to change. And we've seen it across the board in college football. They have not regulated the transfer portal well. They've not regulated NIL well. And they still don't even enforce their own rules right. And even when they do, they get it wrong.
Yeah, I totally agree. Obviously I think that there should be deeper sanctions here. Who knows? Maybe we'll see something more. Maybe this is setting it up for more. I know there was a little bit of language in there, like you pointed out, Zach, that like, something could be coming for Harbaugh and stuff like that. But I mean, at the end of the day, like they got caught in the middle of the year and there's nothing the NCAA could do because they move at snail's pace, So it is what it is. But Vince, Andrew, any final thoughts from either of you on sanctions, Michigan, anything like that?
I don't think so. I just, like I said, we'll wait and see. I mean, it's, this is the story that, it'll be amazing when the end of this saga actually happens because it seems like it's been happening now for like 5 years.
Yeah, it does.
Yes.
Feels like it.
Yeah, it'll be fun
I
if
guess
they...
technically the COVID stuff, it has been happening for 4. So.
Yeah, that's true.
What were you gonna say, Vince?
Yeah, but it'll be fun at the end to see if anything actually does end up happening that's actually meaningful. So that'll be interesting. But I'm really excited for the fall football and the more exciting stuff and covering the players and stuff. So fall can't get here soon enough.
Right, just beat them on the field. Don't even let the NCAA beat them. Beat them on the field.
Yeah, NCAA cannot beat them. We have to do it, guys. Like Ohio State, Penn State, we gotta merge together and beat the cheaters because the NCAA ain't gonna do it.
Beat them dirty cheaters. All right. Well, Michigan fans, if you're listening out there, let me be the first to congratulate you on getting away with the recruiting violations. You've done well. Props to you. That's all I got. So